My girlfriend had been locked in an ongoing prank war with her guy friend for weeks. But lately things had started feeling suspicious enough that I began wondering if she was cheating. The pranks were getting completely out of control. We had been together for 2 years, and she had this male friend named Fernando. I was never really a fan of the friendship, but I didn't want to be the controlling boyfriend who interfered with who she spent time with. Last week, she told me Fernando had pranked her by calling her phone and pretending to be Jack Nicholson using one of those soundboard apps. She thought it was hilarious and immediately started planning revenge. A few days later, we were hanging out at Fernando's apartment, and she secretly used his landline to call one of those hotline numbers that charges by the minute. Then she just left the call running. Fernando ended up getting billed around $200 because of it. Naturally, Fernando retaliated. He came to a party my girlfriend was hosting and secretly hid this creepy headless doll in her closet. When she found it, she screamed, freaked out for a second, then immediately burst out laughing. Instead of realizing the prank war had gone too far, she became even more determined to top him. She knew Fernando was terrified of clowns, so she spent days building this massive hollow clown statue that a person could hide inside. Her plan was to sneak it into his house with help from his roommate, wait inside it all night, and then jump out once Fernando noticed it. I told her the whole thing sounded way too extreme, but she ignored me and went through with it anyway. Later that night, I got a frantic call from her. Apparently, the second Fernando saw the clown move and she jumped out, he panicked and instinctively punched her directly in the face before realizing it was her. Her nose got broken badly enough that she had to go to the hospital. Thankfully, she was okay, though she still had to wear a splint afterward. What shocked me most was that even after getting seriously injured, she still wanted to keep pranking him. At that point, I started seriously questioning the whole situation. It no longer felt like harmless jokes between friends. It felt like she was using the prank war as an excuse to spend an unreasonable amount of time with Fernando. I confronted her and explained that the pranks had become dangerous and that her relationship with him was starting to cross boundaries. The weirdest part was that she constantly referred to Fernando as her brother and her best friend, even though they had only known each other for about 5 months. I expected her to at least hear me out calmly, but instead she got defensive immediately. She snapped at me and said, "This is exactly why I'm always hanging out with Fernando. At least he actually has a sense of humor." Then she added that if I weren't so uptight, she wouldn't need to spend so much time around him in the first place. Hearing that honestly crushed me because it sounded like she specifically preferred being with him over me. The argument escalated fast into a full screaming match. Right in the middle of it, someone rang the doorbell. She answered it, and standing there was a guy in a giant gorilla costume. The guy suddenly barged into the apartment and started humping our furniture in the living room like a maniac. I instantly assumed it was Fernando trying another ridiculous prank, so I punched him in the face without even thinking. The guy ripped off the gorilla mask, and it turned out to be Fernando's roommate, Matus. Apparently, Fernando had paid Matus $100 to distract us with the gorilla's suit, while Fernando himself snuck into our bedroom and hid something under our mattress cover. I completely lost my patience and ordered both of them to get out of the apartment and stop all the pranks permanently. Instead of supporting me, my girlfriend thought the entire thing was hysterical. She laughed and told me I needed time to cool down. Then, unbelievably, she left the apartment with Fernando and Matus, while Matus was still bleeding from the nose and still wearing part of the gorilla costume. I didn't hear from her for the rest of the night. The next morning, I noticed she had posted a random picture of a bagel on Instagram. So at least I knew she was awake and alive, but I had no idea where she had slept or what exactly happened after she left with him. I was furious and seriously considered ending the relationship. At the same time, though, I still loved her deeply and hated the thought of throwing away 2 years together. Eventually, I decided I couldn't ignore the situation anymore and broke up with her. I told her almost exactly what people had been suggesting to me for days. I admitted that I believed what she had with Fernando already qualified as an emotional affair, even if nothing physical had happened yet. As expected, she exploded. She accused me of being controlling, emotionally abusive, and insecure. She claimed every ex-boyfriend she'd ever had was emotionally abusive too, and said I was just another man proving her right. Since she technically wasn't on my lease and was only partially living with me, it wasn't difficult to make her move out. I wasn't sure whether she would return to her old roommate's place, where most of her belongings still were, or whether she planned to move in with Fernando and Matus. When I asked her directly if she was going to live with Fernando, she coldly replied that it was none of my business anymore. That night, I tried to relax and process everything. Even though I was hurt, I felt confident that breaking up had been the right decision and that eventually I could move on and meet someone healthier for me. But then my phone started blowing up with calls from restricted numbers. Every time I answered, nobody said anything. Eventually, I silenced my phone, assuming it was just another childish prank from her or Fernando. The next morning, I checked my phone and saw nearly 60 missed calls from blocked numbers. Shortly afterward, I received a text from Fernando asking if he could come by and pick up my ex-girlfriend's remaining belongings. So apparently she had moved in with him after all. I tried to stay civil because I just wanted the situation over with, but I also desperately wanted closure. When Fernando arrived, I told him directly that his relationship with my ex had absolutely contributed to the breakup and that I knew they were together now. To my surprise, Fernando looked genuinely confused. He said he didn't think my ex was romantically interested in him and insisted he definitely wasn't interested in her either. I accused him of lying and told him there was no point pretending anymore. He started acting nervous, so I reassured him that I wasn't going to attack him and that I honestly just wanted the truth. That's when he finally explained everything. According to Fernando, the real person interested in my ex was actually Matus, not him. Matus was apparently extremely shy and had asked Fernando to act as his wingman because Fernando had always been naturally good at making female friends. The idea was that Fernando would become friends with my girlfriend first and slowly help Matus get closer to her over time. Fernando also insisted that the nonstop pranks and ridiculous behavior were intentional because he wanted to make it obvious that his relationship with her was goofy and platonic rather than romantic. Apparently, Matus had paid Fernando back for all the money Fernando lost during their prank war, and Matus was also the one who covered my ex-girlfriend hospital bills after she broke her nose. I told Fernando the entire situation was unbelievably stupid because my ex had clearly moved in with him specifically because she liked him. That meant the whole arrangement was a disaster for all three of them. The second I said that, Fernando looked genuinely disturbed. He started visibly shaking at the thought that my ex might actually have romantic feelings for him. So now the situation was this. My ex was living in a house with a guy she secretly had a crush on who wanted absolutely nothing to do with her romantically, and another guy who did like her but was far too awkward and creepy to admit it normally. Honestly, I hope the three of them enjoyed the chaos they created together. I figure it was only a matter of time before she realized she had attached herself to the wrong person and tried coming back to me. Sure enough, that's exactly what happened. At first, after the breakup, I felt relieved. The constant stress, ridiculous pranks, and endless drama were finally gone from my life. For the first time in weeks, I could actually relax without wondering what insane stunt would happen next. But the peace didn't last long. Just over a week after she moved out, I got a text from her. There was no apology, no accountability, no acknowledgement of everything she had done. Just a casual hey. I ignored it. If she wanted something important, she could say it directly. But a few hours later, another message popped up. Can we talk? I could have blocked her right then, deleted the conversation, and moved on completely. But curiosity got the better of me. Not because I wanted her back or believed things could be fixed, but because I genuinely wanted to see how badly her little fantasy had fallen apart. So I finally replied with a cold, simple response. About what? I gave her absolutely no opening for casual conversation or emotional manipulation. She took a long time to answer, but eventually she sent a huge message saying that she missed me, that she thought we still had something special, and that things should never have ended the way they did. I actually laughed reading it, because she wrote it as if she had been the one who ended the relationship. As if I hadn't kicked her out after months of disrespect, humiliation, and emotional chaos. I left her on read and continued with my day, but she didn't stop trying. The following day, she messaged again asking if we could meet in person. She promised she only wanted to talk and wouldn't pressure me about anything. This time I answered immediately and told her that if she had something to say, she could say it over text. She kept insisting that talking face-to-face would be better. I honestly didn't see the point, but after enough persistence from her, I finally agreed. We arranged to meet at a cafe in the afternoon. I deliberately chose a public place, because if she tried to create drama, at least there would be people around. When I arrived, she was already sitting in the back corner, scrolling through her phone, looking nervous and exhausted like someone preparing for a difficult conversation. She still had the splint on her nose, which honestly felt like a perfect symbol of how ridiculous the entire situation had become. I sat down across from her, ordered a coffee, and skipped all the small talk. "What do you want?" I asked. She sighed heavily and launched into the typical emotional speech. She said she missed me, admitted she had gone too far, and insisted she genuinely cared about me. She claimed what we had together was special. I rolled my eyes immediately. "If you cared that much," I told her, "you wouldn't have thrown away our relationship over a guy you barely even knew." She instantly became defensive and claimed it wasn't like that. She insisted she never viewed Fernando romantically and said I already knew that. I crossed my arms and waited for the truth to finally come out. That's when the Real story started. She admitted that after moving in with Fernando, she quickly realized he truly had no interest in her whatsoever. He treated her like a completely ordinary roommate and nothing more. At first, she pretended it didn't bother her, but eventually the atmosphere in the apartment became uncomfortable. Matus, the one who actually liked her, turned out to be very different from what she expected. According to her, he became clingy, awkward, and overly attached almost immediately. He constantly tried doing favors she never asked for, insisted on cooking for her, and behaved like they were already in a relationship despite her never encouraging him. Then things got worse. One night, after drinking a few beers, Matus openly admitted that he was frustrated. He told her it wasn't fair that he kept doing things for her while getting nothing in return. She tried brushing it off as a joke at first, but apparently he was completely serious. He directly told her that if she wasn't interested in him romantically, she should leave the apartment entirely. That was the moment she realized how badly she had ruined her own situation. She no longer had her old room because she had already given it up. She didn't have enough money to rent a place herself, and now she was stuck living in a house with two men. One who clearly didn't want her there romantically, and another who was becoming increasingly obsessive and resentful toward her. That was when she suddenly realized she had made a terrible mistake. And naturally, once everything collapsed around her, she decided to run back to me. I listened to her entire story in silence. I barely reacted at all. I just sat there sipping my coffee while she spiraled emotionally across the table from me. Finally, after explaining everything, she looked at me hopefully and asked, "So what do you think?" I almost laughed out loud. What did I think? I thought she was finally experiencing the consequences of her own decisions. I told her calmly, "you should have thought about all this before." Her eyes widened like she genuinely expected me to forgive her and take her back immediately. "You can't be serious," she whispered. "I'm completely serious," I replied. I leaned forward slightly and looked directly into her eyes. "You treated me horribly. You humiliated me, disrespected me, and made me feel like I was worthless. You threw away our relationship so you could chase excitement with two random guys, and now that everything blew up in your face, you expect me to rescue you. Do you even hear how ridiculous that sounds?" She immediately started stumbling through excuses. She claimed she had been naive, said she never intended to hurt me, and insisted she was only trying to have harmless fun. But by that point, I honestly didn't care anymore. "You made your choice," I told her. "Now live with it." Then I stood up, left enough money on the table to pay for the coffee, and walked out of the cafe without looking back once, leaving her sitting there completely defeated. Over the next several days, she tried everything she could think of to get my attention again. Endless messages, missed calls, emotional paragraphs, apologies, excuses, anything she thought might work. She kept trying to contact me nonstop after that. Messages, phone calls, even showing up outside my apartment, building hoping I would talk to her. But I never gave her another chance because, honestly, she didn't deserve one. Later, through mutual friends, I heard that she eventually moved out of Fernando and Matus's apartment. Apparently, Matus completely lost control when she left. He caused a huge scene, accusing her of using him emotionally and claiming it wasn't fair after everything he had done for her. Fernando, on the other hand, supposedly reacted with pure relief. From what I heard, my ex ended up scrambling to find somewhere else to stay and was crashing on some distant friend's couch. And honestly, I couldn't bring myself to feel sorry for her. She had played with fire. She thought she could disrespect me, toy with my emotions, throw away our relationship, and still walk away untouched by consequences. Instead, she ended up exactly where her choices led her. Meanwhile, I finally started moving on with my life, free from all the chaos and stupidity. After that meeting at the cafe, I genuinely believed the whole situation was finally over. But of course, she wasn't willing to accept that so easily. In the days afterward, she continued trying to reach me constantly. Messages, calls, and even spending an entire night waiting outside my building hoping I would come out and talk to her. I ignored every single attempt. Then the rumors started. Mutual acquaintances began messaging me, asking if I knew what my ex had been saying about me behind my back. According to her, I was suddenly a vindictive narcissist, a controlling, obsessive freak, and my personal favorite, an emotionally abusive monster who abandoned her when she needed support the most. The funny thing was I didn't even bother defending myself. Anyone who actually knew the full story had already distanced themselves from her because they understood exactly what happened. But the final straw came when one of my friends told me that Matus, yes, the exact same guy who manipulated the entire situation from the beginning, had started telling people that I was a coward for dumping her and that I needed to settle things like a man. That's when I realized I was done ignoring him. Up until that point, I had mostly stayed out of things because I figured my ex was already suffering the consequences of her own choices and that Matus would eventually ruin his own life without my help. But after hearing that, I decided I wanted to confront him directly. This guy had spent months sneaking around my relationship, manipulating my girlfriend while pretending to be harmless. And now he suddenly wanted to act tough? That same night, I went to their apartment. I knocked on the door and waited. A few moments later, Fernando answered. The second he saw me, his expression tightened immediately. Before he could even ask why I was there, I got straight to the point. "Where's Matus?" Fernando sighed heavily and looked away for a second, almost like he already knew exactly why I had come. "He's in his room," he said quietly while stepping aside. I walked directly through the apartment without hesitation and went straight to Matus's door. I pushed it open without knocking. He was sitting casually on his bed, holding his phone like he didn't have a care in the world. The second he saw me, he smirked arrogantly. "Oh, so you finally decided to show up," he said. I didn't respond. I shut the door behind me and walked toward him slowly. Matus started standing up, but before he could react, I punched him square in the jaw. He stumbled backward and slammed into the wall. "This is what you wanted, right?" I shouted. "You wanted to settle things like men?" He tried shoving me away, but he was weaker than I expected. I hit him again, this time hard in the stomach, and he collapsed onto the floor, gasping in pain. "You got close to my girlfriend, manipulated her, and now you want to act like the victim?" I snapped. Matus coughed and tried saying something, but I grabbed him by the collar and shoved him against the wall again. "You pretended to be harmless, pretended to be everyone's friend. But the whole time you were just waiting for a chance to stab me in the back, weren't you?" I said while watching panic spread across his face. "You waited until she was vulnerable so you could take advantage of her." I never forced anything," he stammered nervously. "But you expected something in return, didn't you?" I fired back immediately. "You thought doing favors for her meant she owed you attention, affection, maybe even her body." He didn't answer. He just sat there shaking, sweating, and too terrified to even defend himself. Then suddenly the bedroom door burst open. My ex rushed inside and screamed the moment she saw Matus bruised and lying on the floor. "Stop! Please stop this." I turned toward her, breathing heavily. "So now you want to defend this pathetic piece of—" "No, it's not like that," she interrupted desperately. "Please, this won't fix anything. Can we just talk?" Her voice sounded panicked and exhausted. I took a deep breath and looked directly into her eyes. In that moment, I realized exactly how to end the entire situation permanently. I can't, I told her calmly. She looked confused immediately. What? I can't, I repeated, because I'm seeing someone else now. The shock on her face was instant. What did you just say? You didn't seriously think I was going to sit around waiting for you forever, did you? I crossed my arms. I moved on. I'm with someone who actually respects me. Someone mature. Someone who doesn't play childish games or humiliate me constantly. I watched her expression completely fall apart. She looked like she genuinely couldn't process what she was hearing. You're just saying that to hurt me, she whispered. Believe whatever you want, I answered coldly. But my life is moving forward now. Yours needs to move forward too. She shook her head, trying to think of something to say, but I was already done listening. I turned back toward Matus, who was still sitting on the floor defeated, and gave him one final warning. If I ever hear you talking about me again, I'll come back. And next time nobody will be here to save you. Without waiting for a response, I walked out of the apartment. As I passed Fernando, he simply shook his head like he had expected all of this to happen eventually. When I finally left that building, for the first time in months, I genuinely felt free from the entire situation. My ex never contacted me again after that night. I guess hearing that I had supposedly moved on with someone else destroyed whatever hope she still had left. As for Matus, I later heard he moved out not long afterward. Maybe he finally realized he never belonged in the situation he created. In the end, I walked away from all of it having learned one important lesson. I learned to respect my own value. And the three of them stayed exactly where their choices left them. That a few weeks had passed since the night I confronted Matus and finally cut my ex completely out of my life. Honestly, it felt like a huge relief not having to deal with her desperate messages, ridiculous rumors, or any of the chaos connected to that entire circus anymore. My life had finally become peaceful again, and I was genuinely enjoying this new chapter free from all the drama and toxicity. Then one day, out of nowhere, I received a message from Fernando. I was surprised immediately. It wasn't aggressive, threatening, or sarcastic. It was just a simple message. Can we talk? I stared at my phone for a while trying to figure out what he could possibly want. Truthfully, I never personally hated Fernando, but after everything involving my ex and Matus, I had become suspicious of anything connected to that whole situation. Still, something made me answer. About what? It took him a little while to respond, but when he finally did, he got straight to the point. I don't know, man. I just feel like we should talk. This whole thing was ridiculous. I'll buy you a beer if you hear me out. That caught me off guard. He didn't sound hostile or manipulative, and it didn't feel like some fake apology either. Honestly, it sounded genuine. After thinking about it for a few minutes, I agreed. We arranged to meet at a small bar that wasn't too crowded. I was still cautious, but I wanted to hear what he had to say. While I got there, Fernando was already sitting at a table with 2 beers waiting. As soon as he noticed me, he lifted his hand casually. Glad you came, he said. I sat down without much enthusiasm, grabbed the beer, and took a sip before speaking. All right, what's this about? Fernando sighed and slowly rolled his glass between his hands before finally answering. Your ex. Matus, all of this. I need to admit something. You were right the whole time. I raised an eyebrow, but stayed quiet so he could continue. I never had anything against you, he explained. But I got dragged into this mess without realizing where it was headed. At first, the pranks actually seemed harmless and funny. But once your ex moved into my apartment and kept acting like life was one giant game, honestly, it started disgusting me. He took another drink before continuing. She assumed that just because she was living there, I'd automatically be interested in her. But there was never anything between us. I never had feelings for her. Then once she realized that, she started dropping hints, trying to provoke me, even suggesting we hook up just to see what would happen. I laughed in disbelief and shook my head. So, she tried it with you too? Seriously, this woman never learns. Fernando laughed too, but then sighed heavily. The worst part is that once I realized exactly what was happening, I finally made a decision. I told her directly that she needed to find somewhere else to stay because the situation wasn't working anymore. And how did she react? I asked. Fernando chuckled like he still couldn't believe it himself. She completely lost it. Said it was unfair, said she had already been through enough, accused me of abandoning her, called me cold-hearted and selfish. Basically every insult you can imagine. But honestly, I didn't care anymore. I just wanted peace back in my apartment. I clinked my glass against his. So, you finally started thinking clearly. Yeah, he replied. But here's the funniest part. She literally had nowhere to go. I smirked. So Matus finally got tired of her too? Not exactly, Fernando said while pausing for another drink. He was furious because he finally realized she never actually liked him. She was only using him because she needed a place to stay. That made me burst out laughing. So the same idiot who spent months sneaking around, manipulating situations, and waiting for the perfect chance to wreck my relationship ended up getting used and thrown away himself. Fernando nodded immediately. Exactly. And trust me, he didn't handle it well at all. After she left, he became bitter and started acting strange. I even heard he tried contacting her again afterward, but she ignored him completely. So after all that, I said, he still never got the girl. Nope, Fernando answered. And honestly, I think that hurt him more than anything else. For a moment, we both sat there in silence, just appreciating the irony of the entire situation. Then Fernando raised his glass. I think we should drink to the end of this disaster. I lifted mine too, to the end of the world's dumbest soap opera. We clinked our glasses together and laughed harder than either of us expected. Weirdly enough, it felt natural, almost like we had been friends the entire time. And honestly, maybe at that point we were. Over the next few months, our friendship actually became stronger. Fernando turned out to be a genuinely decent guy who had simply gotten trapped in a ridiculous situation he never expected. He was just as exhausted by all the drama as I was. In the end, the two of us were really the only people who walked away better off. As for my ex, from what I heard, she eventually rented some tiny room and had to share it with two random girls she barely even knew. Nobody really paid attention to her anymore. Nobody cared about her stories, excuses, or games. The giant social drama she thought she controlled eventually left her isolated and irrelevant. And Matus? After taking that massive blow to his ego, he basically disappeared. I heard he moved to another city entirely, probably hoping for a fresh start somewhere nobody knew him. Honestly, I couldn't care less. He got exactly what he deserved. As for me, I fully moved on with my life. Fernando and I became surprisingly close friends. We'd hang out, grab drinks, talk about random things, and occasionally laugh about how absurd the entire situation had been. And honestly, I think that's what finally made it easy to let go. Knowing that in the end, the people who tried to ruin my life only ended up ruining their own while we sat there raising beers in victory. And I have to admit, that beer tasted better than any drink I'd ever had before. Months passed after all the drama involving Fernando, Matus, and my ex finally ended. After everything that happened, I managed to rebuild my peace completely. No more stupid prank wars. No more pointless arguments. No more feeling like I was competing for attention with another guy while my girlfriend clearly prioritized him over me. I genuinely thought I would never hear about her again. But life always finds a way to throw one more twist into the story. One day, a mutual friend sent me a message that immediately caught my attention. Dude, you are not going to believe this. Your ex is pregnant. I reread the message 3 times because my brain genuinely refused to process it at first. Pregnant? My immediate reaction was laughter, not because I was trying to be cruel, but because the situation sounded so ridiculous it almost felt fake. Then came the part that made everything even crazier. And she's alone. Apparently the father is Matus. At that moment, I felt equal parts shocked and disgusted. After I removed her from my life, everything around her had completely collapsed. She no longer had a stable relationship. She no longer had the attention and excitement from her prank war nonsense. And judging by everything I heard, reality had finally hit her hard. But even then, I never imagined things would spiral so far that she would end up pregnant by Matus of all people. I honestly couldn't stop laughing at how absurd it all was. Apparently, after leaving Fernando's apartment with nowhere to go and almost no support left, she eventually started hooking up with Matus again. Apparently, After everything fell apart, she started getting involved with practically anyone who gave her even the smallest amount of attention. And of course, the person constantly hanging around hoping for another chance was Matus. But despite all his desperation, Matus wasn't completely clueless. Deep down, he knew she had never truly cared about him and that she was only using him to fill the emptiness in her life after everything collapsed. Still, he was so painfully desperate for validation that he accepted it anyway, at least until things went too far. The moment Fernando found out she was pregnant, Matus disappeared completely. He blocked her number, ignored every attempt she made to contact him, and even left the group chats he shared with their mutual friends. The last thing he wanted was to be tied down to a woman who never genuinely wanted him and a child he clearly never planned to have. So now my ex was completely alone, broke, isolated, abandoned, and pregnant. And somehow, after all of that, she still had the nerve to reach out to me again. One evening I got a text from an unknown number. "Can we talk?" I ignored it immediately. The next day another message came through. "Please, I really need to talk to you." Ignored again. Then the call started. Eventually I realized she probably wasn't going to stop unless I answered once, and ended it permanently. So I finally picked up. "What do you want?" I asked immediately, already irritated. For a second she didn't say anything, almost like she was shocked that I actually answered. I just wanted to talk," she said quietly. "About what?" I replied coldly. "About everything, about how I feel, about what's happening to me." I rolled my eyes instantly. "What's happening to you stopped being my problem a long time ago," I told her. "You made your choices. Now you deal with the consequences." "Please," she whispered. "I just need someone to talk to. I have nobody." "And whose fault is that?" I shot back. Silence. "You spent months playing games with everyone around you," I continued. "You treated people like pieces on a chessboard. You humiliated me, prioritized another guy over me, and acted like everything was some joke. And now you're begging because the same people you chose over me abandoned you." I heard her breathing shake slightly, like she was trying not to cry. "I didn't think things would end up like this," she admitted softly. "But I did." I answered immediately. "I warned you repeatedly. You had stability, loyalty, and someone who genuinely cared about you, and you threw all of it away for drama and attention. Now you expect me to save you." "I don't want money," she said quickly. "I don't want anything from you. I just wanted someone to listen, then pay for a therapist," I replied before hanging up. And honestly, it felt good. For a long time after the breakup, part of me wondered whether I had been too harsh or whether I overreacted when I ended things. But hearing the desperation in her voice and realizing she was finally facing the consequences of her own actions gave me a sense of closure I didn't even know I needed. And the funniest part of the entire situation was Matus. This was the same guy who spent months trying to undermine me, ruin my relationship, and make me look weak so he could take my place. He wanted to manipulate everything behind the scenes and come out on top. But when things finally became real, he ran away exactly like the coward he always was. He tried to destroy my life. Yet in the end, he became trapped in the disaster he helped create. After that phone call, I never heard from my ex again. The last thing I found out through mutual acquaintances was that she had started asking family members for help raising the baby. But apparently nobody wanted to take responsibility for the situation she created for herself. Honestly, that didn't surprise me at all. Meanwhile, I fully moved on with my life. I made new friends, started a healthier relationship, and left all of that chaos behind permanently. Fernando and I actually became close friends over time. We'd hang out, grab drinks together, and laugh about how unbelievably ridiculous the entire situation had been. And in the end, there was really only one lesson to take from everything. If you play with fire long enough, eventually you get burned.